Hello everyone, Ben here, aka Palgene001 aka the and we're back with City Skylines 2 and Waikato. We are now on to 6.0, the city centre itself. Finally, we're up to the city centre after we've been focusing for so long on the rest of the city, starting with the Waikato North Shore and River Junction and Pokeno, moving out to Waikato Grove, Moonlight Springs, Zealand, Little Britain North, Howick, Taranaki, Waikato Gardens, Gordonton, the port, even the big airport, and then even popping over to Clevedon and Waipa and Waikato Sands. But it is time now at 174,000 to get cracking with the city centre. Now, the city centre is actually more than one part, although the district itself concerned is here, but as you know, city centre can be made up with multiple parts. So in this case, and if I was to actually take it to a north direction to make it a little bit more, it doesn't work on a north-south basis. It actually works on an east-west basis this time around. So you've got the city centre in here. You've got the downtown, which is contained in between this highway and Waipa River here. You've got the South Waikato Junction. So this is the Waikato River. This is the Waipa River, which joins up to the Waikato River, which goes out to the harbour, then goes out to the bay. Again, this map is based on the Elizabeth County, Virginia map, and I have adopted using Aotearoa New Zealand names, as I typically do. But yes, continuing. So you got the South Waikato Junction there, opposite its counterpart to, of course, the main junction itself, and across the bank from the massive Waikato Gardens. Okay, so that's in here. So we have, and that's actually going to be, is that tied to the railway? That's tied to the railway, so that's fine. So we haven't named, we haven't named all of it yet, so some of it will pick up names and so on as we go through. Now in 6.0, and this is where you so-called do planning on the fly. Well, not so-called planning on the fly. Us planners don't do planning on the fly. Yes, we do. Is I've got the old trusty pen and paper out. Yes, even someone who uses digital tools quite a lot, including AI and LLMs, large language models. Pen and paper still works the best. So let's take a look at what we're going to do with part 6. This is the city centre itself. This is the creme de la creme. This is where you're building the central core of your city. Yes, you can run 2 cores, and we technically do run 2 cores, just as Auckland runs 2 cores. Waikato Gardens being the second core for the other side of the river, but for the main city centre itself, we are focusing here, and some parts of it's already being laid out through the series and even off screen, just so I'm not having to do so much at once, because it can get very put it this way, we'll be here here for another 6 to 8 weeks in real time, just trying to get all this set up. But that also means the simulator is going to be sitting on pause until we're ready to go, because we've got some very big signature buildings in here at the moment, and some very big infrastructures like the big central subway system, which if I was to pop into underground mode, you can see there, and you can start to see I have started bringing in some of the infrastructure online to so-called make this happen. So if I was to release the simulator, we would actually just throw the entire city out. So not the wisest to do at this time. But as I said, the old trusty well, in this case, this way, the old trusty pen and paper on what we're going to do with the 6.x series, because doing the city centre is arguably the most complex part of doing your city, apart from 1.0 when you found it for the first time. So if we do 6.0, that is, we're going to do the spatial planning. And just remember, spatial planning is all about using your tools to influence behavior through spatial form. So what you're looking at in here is the city is the spatial form, and vice versa. So if I've said spatial form informing behavior, it's also behavior influencing spatial form. And so that's land use, transport, land use, and how you interact the city with the city user experience. So we're 6.0, we're going to do some spatial planning, and I have a brand new mod, the city planning draft, that allows me to do that. You might be able to see up here where I've started to get going. And so we're going to do quite a bit of spatial planning today. And we're also going to do land use planning, which follows on from spatial planning. The land use planning implements what I've done at the spatial plan level. With that, so spatial planning and land use planning today in 6.0. 6.1, we will finish the road and rail and transit infrastructure. And that's just in the city centre quadrant itself. Okay, so that's finishing off what we've got. So that's finishing, as I said, finishing it off in the city centre quadrant first and foremost, which means I've got to anticipate the others. The next part is to then in 6.2, we're going to finish off. We'll get started on South Waikato Junction, because that naturally flows on, given there's also subway linking it back, metro linking it back to Waikato Gardens as well as ferry. So we're going to do South Waikato Junction, and we're going to do a new district also in likely in these two areas as well, which the two new riverside districts. So we'll do those. So we're going to focus on them first. Okay. Then 6.3, we're going to shoot over to the downtown. So 6.3 is the downtown. Okay. 6.4, we're probably going to look at in here, following around outside a little bit, because some of the infrastructure has still got to get technically set up. Like we've got to get a new subway yard over here to service all the subway stations. But we're going to look. This will be part of the. This will be establishing the infrastructure ready all through this here. To bridge up the city centre set with Clevedon and Waipa. So a huge big suburban or urban residential bank to pull everyone in. 6.5 will be stitching it all up with the transit. And any of the other physical infrastructure like water and wastewater, energy, resource recovery and that. Now, what I've also got to be aware of, and I'm aware of this, there is an update coming in from Paradox and Iceflake Studio, which is going to impact some of the core game dynamics, including garbage. So I've got this is due to be out in the spring, which means it's probably going to fall halfway through the 6.x series. With that in mind, I've got to then, it's going to force me on a break. So if the update does put me on a forced break, well, that's just what's going to happen, and we'll just have to do other things while we just wait for the mods to be updated. Hopefully it won't be long. This update's been pretty well flagged in advance. So they're calling it the autumn update, which is the spring update, and given they follow the equinox patterns, it's about 4 weeks. So the modders have been informed, and I'm well aware. So could be a good, depending if it does come out on equinox in 4 weeks, this would be a real good impetus to get the 6.0x series going, because 6.6 would be to let the simulator rip. Because then 6.7, because I can't put in everything at once, because I'll tank the demand until the new mods in place, the new update in place, which does deal with demand for large cities, to stop tanking your residential demand, you're basically doing incremental adding on of especially your high density residential. So that's going to cover the series and update or not, that's probably going to take about 2 months to do. So this is easily going to take us through to October, because as I said, the city centre, apart from 1.0 when you're founding your city for the first time, 6.0 is the hardest. Your city centre is the most complex to do. Well, it should be, given as the core, the beating core of your city. And then we go on to 7.0, which would be... Ooh. Don't know, to be honest. With 7.0, we could go anywhere. We could focus down here, or we could link up with the airport. Probably pop back on the other side and link up with that side, to be honest. So yeah, that's where we are with the 6.0 series. So yes, us planners, we do write things down. Yeah, we can do things on the fly. But there it is. All ready to go. So let's get going with, we're 10 minutes in, 11 minutes in already. Yabba, yabba, yabba. With 6.0, we're doing the spatial planning for, in this instance, the city centre. So everything inside this boundary, as we go through each district. So the downtown South Waikato junction, all these junctions we move on, we will do spatial planning to go over the top. So this is the new model called City Centre Draft. It basically allows you to do planning. This is the equivalent of laying down, for us that do it old school, can do it old school by hand, the old butter paper over a map, and getting out the old graphics pencils, both black and in colour. And side fact, I'll just show you if I've got them here. So here's a fun fact. So yes, as a geographer, planner and urban designer, given I occupy all three realms, I can use all three tools available to me depending on what it is. And when I've done real life projects in the past, especially on the transport or urban renewal sides, I have always used two of the tools. The third tool, which is AI, has only just come about more recently, so I've only just started using it more readily for draft renders before sending it off to the actual architects, drafts and designers, graphic designers, to go and do the full renders, to prepare it for project, either to give it to the stakeholders or the client holders. Yes, we're doing a total sidebar, but given 6.0, we're doing planning, and I've got the it open at the moment. This would be a very good thing to do. So we've got the canvas open at the moment. But yes. And you can probably just see, this was me having a tutu with it next to the conference centre, the big sunken subway plaza, and the huge big observation tower. So that's forming some of the central points. You can see me going at. But yes, let me just get it out. So this goes back to my university years. Here's the bag. Here are the graphics pencils, both colour and black and white. So I've got the full set of the B and H range. And of course you have your trusty sharpener. You might be able to see those depending on what screen you're looking at. Your rubber, or as you call it in the United States, your bunch of ollies. The eraser. I do not have it here in the moment because it's used between that and the real life so-called real life train set I've got in the garage. But I do not have the craft knife in here at the moment because that's often more effective in sharpening up these puppies. That's a blood one, of course, so you can tell I've been doing some work with these recently. So yep, this is the graphics gear. And then the next thing we do is, as I go scrounging through the drawer, is we've got the trusty, here it is, I'm just going to make sure I don't yank everything out with it today. So I'm just going to find the top. Yep, there it is. The old trusty butter paper. Gordon Harris stuff, so those in Auckland will be familiar with that. And as we know with butter paper, mightn't actually have any renderings. I mightn't actually have anything attached. There might be one stored. No. Do I, don't I? I did do some Monaco renderings recently. Yes, I have. Now, this is going to be interesting if it shows up or not properly. It depends on your camera resolution. But this is of Monaco City Centre, so I don't know if it shows up properly or not. So you can see the Google map or the council GIS map underneath it. And then I will draw over the top of it. I suppose if I turn it over, you might be able to see it now. So that's tracing over with the, in this case, this is two-dimensional with the pencil renderings. If you're wondering if I can go 3D, the answer is yes. Although that usually gets pushed off to the designers quite quickly as soon as we go into 3D. But that brings us to, that's it. Once it's finished here on the butter paper, it then moves to the white A3. So this is where I blow the paper budgets. We do a lot of work in A3. And that and this is where we move on to the next station. This is where it gets transferred from the butter paper up to A3 when we're doing planning. Now, if I got anything here that's not IP sensitive that I can show. Yes. So I'm not doing IRIX anymore. Actually, no, this is actually for airport to botany. So we then switch over to very rough. This is now when we're doing wayfinding signage. We transfer over to, it goes to pencil, and then it goes up to the next step, which is using our digital tools. Now, if I'm still in draft mode, I can draw it up. The maps can get drawn. I can draw it up in GIS, so long as I've got the map overlay that I'm needing to work to. Or I can, if it's 3D, I can start using, at the moment, I can start using AutoCAD. However, given that it gets sent off to designers, actual designers after that, with the AI coming on board now, it is rendered more quickly, so I can push it through the AI to give a render, and away we go. In fact, if you give me 2 seconds, one moment for caller, stand by. Just pulled up the files. So a lot. I will always still use pencil to get it down to get the 1D and 2Ds down. But there's now a new gap introduced, so I don't have to use a lot of time in the GIS or the AutoCAD software, and that's using the AI to render things up before it gets kicked off to the designers. In fact, because it's pulled up in 3D so quickly and backed up with the pencil drawings, the designers can work much more quickly because they've got it in mind and they can do the refinements more quickly. But for example, and this is a AI render using Google Gemini of a cross-section of Romwood Avenue, Monaco, if it was to be adapted into light rail rather than bus rapid transit. So you've got the sidewalk, the cycle track, the EV lane, the bioswales, the tramway with the platforms on board, the EV lane, and then the promenade, and then you've got your mixed use buildings either side of that. So the AI can pull these up very quickly, but you would still send it down, which is now the third error. But it would still get sent to the designers to go and get this formally rendered up. In fact, if you give me 2 seconds again, and this time I won't bother pausing, I'll get. And this is a question: did I actually save it? Yes, I did. Looks very close to what a human would do, but a human would still... oh, I see what they've done. Haha. They've created... Well, that works actually. That solves an earlier problem. This would still get sent to the human designer. It's actually Davies Avenue, not Davis. Doesn't matter. And that's the one reason why you get it sent to the humans to correct up spelling errors that get sent on the way. But it's the similar concept of A to B. You've got Hayman Park to the left, Davis Avenue becomes a transit corridor, and you've got your TOD buildings, which are currently just big giant parking lots to the right. Yes, we're doing a massive squirrel, but this all plays into spatial planning, and then moving into design. So yeah, this allows me to draw up a very rough concept using the AI from my pencil drawings to this to send out to the designer who would do the final proof, and then send it back down, and then away it goes to the construction teams once it would have political approval. Given I work with public sector projects more often than private sector. There's also another reason why you would always get the human to do this in the final designs for putting in for tendering and construction. As if you end up in New Zealand's case, end up in the Environment Court. The judges have made it perfectly clear: human agents only. Yes, I could use this as a very rough concept, but they will want to see the actual human evidence and proof behind it. So the human element is going to be there, and the human jobs in these cases will always still be there. So this allows me to go from pencil to a very quick concept rendering to take to the designers and to the elected reps. For the elected reps to go yes, and then for the designers to do their magic. So they'll never be replaced, but at least there's an intermediary step here between my pencil drawings and these. Right, so we've just gone through a huge, big 20-minute side rant. Time to get the spatial planning done. Right, let's kick in. So we'll focus back over here. We've got two in place already. North American commercial. And because I have a mod that allows for hotels and motels to be split, hotels, because this is the conference center, of course. And of course, you will also see when I'm laying down roads, and it basically tells you object name, local road 3, blah, 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 and the hotel road, and technically this is still technically the hotel road. In fact, I'm going to have to move my mic because the keyboard's going to be used quite a lot because there's a lot of typing with this. Right. Okay. So now we go and area tool, road tool. So we're going to create an area. Okay, now. Okay, snapping on. It is custom because the hotel modes are custom. Okay. Okay, so up it goes. So this will have snapping, just like I do in City Skylines. Okay, and that's custom area. Now that should be custom, so that is, again, this is the hotel area, or civic infrastructure, or a plaza. Okay, and that carries on through, but that goes on to the district next door, so we don't need to worry there. Okay, so that's the central tram plaza, and that is the pedestrian path that connects back into the central station. Okay, so that is office. That's a big office structure. Office structure with, I believe that's got a subway station attached. If I was to come out of this. Next in plan mode, and if I was to drop down, yep, subway connects right in. So back in we go. And this time, because that's already office. Now, if you want to know what mixed use comes under, they'll come under residential, which is what it is in the game. So, Okay, office area. Yeah, that just stays as office area 4. In fact, I don't think that actually does back onto the road. So you could do, again, office. Actually, because it's actually the way it's facing in, you would actually go. Okay, and then rename that mixed use. And then I'll decide on what mixed use at the time when I knuckle down into picking the zones, and that's done through the land use plan. So there is that. Okay. That backs onto the railway, so you would run. You could run residential backing onto this. Now, it is a 4-lane road, but I'm also likely to make it into a transitable. I have not added in a large bus bay as such. Now, there is one down here, but I'm more likely to also... Depends if I'm going to run buses up here or not. That's dependent on quite a few different other things. But for the moment, this can be just straight. Straight residential, and then again, I'll pick the zone at time. Most likely be European, North American, or even Chinese, which give me the tallest towers required. Okay, then yeah, commercial again. We're right in the. Oop. Well, you can actually just go over that. Okay, so commercial. Now, one thing I do have to keep in mind is infrastructure. And we will deal, and I'll show you where that goes in a minute once I line that up. Again, residential. I'm just checking the... okay, now I've got to be careful. That's a big 6-laner. So you don't want it going up to the 6-laner. Now, I'm actually going to rename that. That is actually going to be... Hello, rent residential, so you're still very close to, you're inside the city centre, so you don't have to go far to work, and you've still got access to all your transit services. I don't do what most cities do and bung them on the, either on the fringe of town or along a 6-lane road. Because that's just big, massive no-nos. Okay, which then leaves this area for... Where does that kick in? Yeah, that kicks in about there. So then... this is great, because then I can export this out to a GIS file or print it off as a PDF. Okay, so this is... civic infrastructure. Those who follow my series know civic infrastructure is police, fire, hospital, deaf care, and education. All your education facilities. Okay, so that's what that would be. Right, roads. Now, I've got to be careful I don't end up creating intersections beyond intersections beyond intersections, because that starts fouling up the thing. Now, that's the main arterial through. We do have a highway, we have the railway, and we have a motorway. And this one connects up to this motorway here, and he goes around. I think this is a tram line that forms over, so he forms a secondary arterial. So, and this is just forming 6 lanes in, because you've got to split across, because it's all your highest density. And you've also got to remember, just because it's tram, I'm more likely to run bus across it as well. So yeah, we can technically chop this up. So what we will do is go to road, and we will now go to, this would be... Oh, got to remember to snap small and go for nodes. Okay, so this would be the collector. These would be collector rows. The arterials I should have already placed in. Okay. Okay, so there's a collector there. As I said, the arterials should already, and the highways should already be in, so I shouldn't need to be doing any of those. Not in this part anyway, and I don't think down here as well. As I said, they're all laid in. Could have some of the smaller arterials going, but these will be more mainly collective roads. And there's definitely no highways at the moment, so that's all said and done. So that's a collector. Okay. Now we've got... And these become local roads. So... Now, local roads can either be two-laners or pedestrian paths. Now, I'm not going to name them all at once, but... Actually, yes, I do. Yes, I will, because that tells me straight away. Okay, so we've got a pedestrian path in there. Okay. Now, I don't think this allows me to do points of interest. So I'd have to do it as a custom area. So I'll put this through to the feedback to the modder. As you allow for little circle dots, and that could say bus station going here, which I would put here. Now, I'm not going to do all the local roads going down because I don't know what zones, infrastructure, or grids I'm using. So there is that I've got to factor in mind. These are just mainly next level up. So just checking in. Anyway, so we've got that. So yeah, we would put in the bus station in here. Size to be determined. Okay, so these are now all local roads again. As I said, not every small road will be done. Okay, because that will come down to the zoning and whether I'm putting in big signature buildings as well. And if you want an example of a huge big signature building where it can muck up your spatial plan. Okay, I'll go shoot down here to where this big boy's going to probably end up going. I believe he's going in here. Skyscraper, here he is. This big chonker. Now that's going to muck up your local roads for starters, and especially with a huge parking lot. I'll put him in, and then I'll take him back out. 5,000, so he's the biggest by far. I don't think it is it parking 822 car parks. So you can figure that out. Yeah, he's going to create a bit of a traffic nightmare. So, whew, yeah. That's why I don't drop down to the smaller roads, because that's going to be absolute fun and games. And that one always is. Okay, so that's there. As I said, I'm not going to necessarily grid this up. This gets gridded up later. I will do the area plans. Is that bridge there? Okay, so that's a pedestrian path. Okay, and now we're going to go back to a collector. And we will... now, that one, because of the bus station's proximity, what I might do is do that as a... to signify that as a transit bridge. You got roads for general traffic either side. Okay? So that defines all that up. Okay, am I shrinking into the downtown here? No. Again, I don't have to worry about all that. No, yeah. So he goes there. 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 I don't need to worry about putting out anything else there. Okay, because again, that comes yet again down to the pattern that I want to use. Because I think, yeah, because that's crossing into the downtown. We're not doing downtown off this one. Yeah, downtown's up to 6.3, because we're doing 6.2. And we've also got to finish the road and transit. Yeah, 6.3, we come down into here. Downtown, yeah. Okay, so I think that's basically the roads for now. Okay, and then, and then we've got down here. I think this is mainly done. And this is now coming outside of the city centre. You don't want to cross your big roads up like that unless you're doing something like a pedestrian path. Or another transit bridge to feed it out, but that would be a good one to note. And then and just leave that as such. So that's just telling me about that. Okay, those are all done up. Yeah, that's all fine. Let's pop back out. Where's the city centres? Actually, yeah, down to the highway. So basically down here. Okay, so that's the major roads done. And that basically connects that all up. Now for the zoning. Because the university is here. Just remember, residential does include mixed use. Okay. This is me just being a little bit pedantic. So that won't mean I won't put in super tools. That will be like using the southwestern and so maybe the Eastern European or UK stuff. Northeastern gets a bit, or even the northeastern. Sometimes I don't get the super tools. which I would off China, North American, European. Could even do Japanese too. It's to be honest, probably actually go down the French and German routes too. They give some good bang for buck at medium density, but medium density in typology, but higher population in terms of population numbers. Okay. Again, not everything will be zoned. This is just giving it a macro level. Okay, just so I know where I have an idea of where things are going. Because of the way what that road is, that would be better to serve as office. Okay. I am actually going to what's not included is things like parks and that. Okay, so you've just got to realize that. Oh, was that an autosave? And sometimes commercial will also be flipped to office or vice versa, depending on your demand. So you've got to factor that in mind as well. So the spatial plan that I'm doing now, and technically also a bit of land use, is not fixed. Not by a long shot. So just, yeah, you just got to remember that. Oops, missed. I will do that again. Because that's if the term green infrastructure is used, that's a park from the parks menu. So that's where that's going. Now I am going to come back out and do big chonker in here to alert me. Large subway yard, but I've also got to remember the subway line's got to feed through to Clevedon, because we do have the option for a subway line which is currently sitting in there. So he would flow down through here and connect up to one of the subway stations here. So you've got a big metro system, because there's could put in the heavy rail station there. That would be a wasted effort. The metro can do the job, and it means also I'm not bunging the freight. Okay. Let me just actually come back out of that and just work out where the city centre is again. Yep, all the way down there. Okay. Right. Whoops. Don't need that. Okay, so what's in here? A lot of Okay, so that's a university and that, but we've got huge arterial roads in here. So that's pretty crap for residential. Good for office space, to the point low density office space would work too. Strangely or ironically. Because not everything's going to be maximum density either, so it can technically can get dropped down to the medium and lower density. This is a technical university, so you do want residential nearby. You just can't have it sit on the big arterial roads. Now, interestingly or silly is the reason why I can do this as industrial is I've got a mod that allows me to select clean industry or warehousing. So you could put a small industrial pocket right into there. Okay, so the hospital's there, buses are there, City Hall is there. Okay. And the central bank is there. This is more of a collector road. The arterial's one over. Which then would be a good spot for again. If I've put down commercial or office, I can switch over to the other. It all depends on the demand, which you can see on my bottom left hand side. Some parts I won't zone because I will leave that spare depending on what I need. So I won't always automatically box myself in like that. It's bus and malls, so that is definitely residential. And then what basically happens here is I leave these clear, and that I come back across these and fill these back as I need to. However, that said, this is more likely than not to be commercial in this instance. Is that a... No, that road bends around. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, so I won't zone everything out because I will leave that, especially if I need to put down other forms of infrastructure. So of course I want to leave that land perfectly clear. And that's just again noting infrastructure. Again, civic infrastructure. Alright, so that concludes the spatial plans out. As I said, you can export export out in that, so I can if I wish to do so. And that would go onto a map file. Now I've actually got the other one, the export one for the main city, disabled at the moment. I should turn it back on and get this exported back to PDF. And that's, but we have basically laid out the spatial plan along with the main roads that are needed. So I'm not going to write down for the city centre. And as you can see residential, commercial, office, civic, all points of interest. The arterial roads were already laid down. I can actually move this back over now. But some other roads were there just to help me finish it off, and we have got some land spare because that is open, technically land banking on my side, public side, for whatever might need to be done, or it could be just earmarked for me to do other forms of infrastructure as the game continues. So you can see the spatial plan has done. This will now be exported out to a JSON file, to which then I'll have beside me, to which then I'll use to do the land use planning, which is all the smaller infrastructure, like the real local roads, basically going along all these, and then prepping for the zones themselves. I won't do that at the moment because it's got the map open. So that's now giving me an idea, and I'm no longer having to wing this or scribble this down on pencil quickly and going, oh dear. So welcome to drawing up a plan, ready to go, and now it's ready for me to carry out into 6.1, which is finishing the road and transit infrastructure. And then we then move down into, I can now take this off, then move down to South Waikato Junction and technically start, and this is a little bit more extensive and needing to draw up the roads and that. Then we can continue through that. Then we go to the downtown. Then we connect up Clevedon and Waipa, and which is basically then we're doing the big stitch together in 6.5 with all the other infrastructure. Then 6.6 we let rip. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue laying out the spatial plan for downtown, whatever this is going to be. South Waikato, this will be Uptown, and this will be Riverside, Waikato Riverside. So I will continue to do those off screen, and then when we come back to 6.1 you can see the finished product. So this has been using the city drafting mod, which is available in Paradox Mods, helping you lay everything out before you start putting down those zones, roads, and all other forms of infrastructure, which can cost a lot of money if you get wrong, as well as time and frustration. We've also done a huge, big, massive squirrel today on what I use in real life, pencils, digital tools, and the AI, and producing these kind of renderings when I'm doing work in the public, mainly public sector, but also the private sector as well. So I'll leave you there. I will finish off the city drafting, and to which this case we will see the big arterials come out, and maybe even the highway. And then I will be back with 6.1, finishing up the road and transit connections, mainly in the city centre to start with. And then we'll start moving out from there. Great to have you here, folks. Let me just exit the planning mod. I am Palpatine 001, aka Senate, aka Ben, in real life, out here in Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa, Auckland, New Zealand. This has been 6.0 with the city centre in Waikato, using the new city planning draft mod to again start drafting it all out. Now to continue through off screen. So we'll see you again in 6.1. Remember, planning, building, and experiencing.